nutrition challenges. Founded with a commitment to evidence-based research and community engagement, NDDI has been at the forefront of nutrition advocacy and policy development. We collaborate with stakeholders across sectors to coordinate and implement high-level nutrition research programs and initiatives. Our work spans across research, education, and policy advocacy, ensuring that we address the multifaceted challenges of nutrition and health. This we achieve through our interdisciplinary research work groups like food environment, obesity and non-communicable diseases, pediatric nutrition, nutrition methods and technology, nutrition care process implementation, and lots more. And professional development programs just as the Learning and Expert Exchange Hub, Emerging Leaders Research Grant Award, etc. Our base is in Nigeria, where we have a broad team of experts across the various geopolitical zones and in diverse areas of nutrition and development. We are also our YouTube channel is an extension of our commitment to knowledge sharing, capacity building, and community engagement. Here you will find a wealth of resources designed to empower researchers in nutrition and public health. One of our flagship series is the Learning Hub. This webinar series is aimed at equipping researchers with essential tools to enhance their research competence. Whether you're looking to master statistical software like SPSS, NVivo, or learn nutrition-specific tools, our Learning Hub series has got you covered. We bring experts to guide you through practical hands-on sessions, ensuring that you not only understand the tools, but also know how to apply them effectively in your work. Another exciting series we offer is Expert Exchange. This series highlights the work of nutritionists across different sectors through engaging interviews and discussions. You'll gain insights into their experiences, challenges, and successes. It's a fantastic opportunity to learn from the best in the field. And each episode is designed to provide you with valuable knowledge and practical advice that you can apply in your own professional practice. Aside from our Learning Hub series, our Expert Exchange series, you can expect to see other content which can include excerpts from speaking engagements, interview sessions to highlight the work that our members do in NDDI and lots more. Rest assured that we are committed to providing you with value through our YouTube page. So expect to see top-notch content. We are excited to have you join our community. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Leave a comment, let us know what topics you would like us to cover in our webinar series for future videos. Your feedback is invaluable to us. Follow us on our social media platforms at NDDI Africa for more updates and join our mission to promote healthy diets and improve public health. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to embarking on this journey with you.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the day 2 of our webinar series on applying principal component analysis to dietary pattern in nutrition survey. If your friend is not here, please let them know that we've started and tell them to join now because we've started. My name is Onyango Barbara Adin Chinobi, and I'm the research administrator for NDDI, and today's session will be co-moderated by Kosi. Yesterday, we focused on the overview of applying principal component analysis, and today we will be diving into the practical aspects of this session. If you know you learned a lot from yesterday, please drop one of your favorite quotes on the chat and also react to it so that we'll know. We are taking back your feedback So we are ready to start, and soon we'll be handing over to our facilitator. So please, we'll just be giving about a few minutes so that your friends, so that you can tell your friends to join, and we'll be there. If your friend is not here, please inform them to join now. All right, I think I can see a few reactions on the chat. That's nice. Okay, so today we'll be going into the practical aspect of applying principal component analysis to nutrition survey in dietary pattern. And right about now, we'll be handing over to our facilitator, Professor Juliana, who is a professor at the Federal University, at Federal University of Pelotas, Brazil. So please get ready, get your materials ready as she's about to start. Thank you, Ma, for joining us once again today. We're excited about what today is going to bring. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. So let's back to our class. So I will post, let me check here. Okay, sure.
So please, before you start, Ma, the material for this particular session was sent to our various emails, but we'll also drop a link now in the chat box in case you are not able to get it on your email. So we'll drop a link now because it's going to be very essential for this particular session. Thank you, Ma. Over to you.
Okay, guys, I will just test to check if everything is fine with my presentation. Are you seeing this on the big screen? Are you seeing the complete?
Yes, Ma. We are seeing it.
No.
Yes, we are seeing it.
Yeah.
It's clear, Ma.
Okay. Okay, so hello everyone. So let's continue. Let's go back to our class. So in this second day, I will talk a little bit more about some steps that you have to take to conduct a principal component analysis, okay? So what's our goal? So today is not a class in statistics, but I will show you some basic knowledge and understanding about this for you in the future, reading materials and planning future analysis. If some of you have a data set, maybe you'll be able to get the general knowledge and probably run the analysis. As I mentioned for you, I have experience using Stata as a software for statistics, but usually we can run the PCA in most of the softwares, okay? So just organize it here. Just to review again what you have mentioned yesterday, that the dietary pattern analysis, it means the PCA analysis, it's a data-driven, okay? It's a data-driven analysis. Oh, sorry, stop here. It's a hypothesis. We don't have a hypothesis when we run this analysis. So it's a complementary strategy to a single food or single nutrient approach. So we don't work with the nutrients. We work with the food that people have reported in the dietary method, like a food frequency questionnaire or a 24-hour recall or any other tool, any other method. So we work with the frequency of food that they have reported or the amount of food that they have reported. So you work with the food information, not with the nutrients in this food. So in this way, the method, the conception is to try to capture some intercorrelation among the food choices that people do, and it will make it like easier to translate into public health recommendations. Why? Because when you mention our results from our project, from our analysis, you're not going to talk about nutrients. You talk about the food, for example. In your results, we will summarize your result giving recommendations on the food. For example, this food pattern has a positive correlation with a health outcome. We should avoid this food pattern and not that food pattern. So we're not going to talk about nutrients, we'll talk about the food. Let me check here. So just to review some of the slides that we have saw yesterday, just to overview and to go back to understand again what you are talking about dietary pattern. So how could we identify the foods that most explain the dietary pattern in a population? If I'm talking about the foods, how we can do that? So we first have to apply a valid dietary method that captures the population habit. So as I mentioned, a food frequency questionnaire, a 24-hour recall, or any other method, okay? So this is very important. It must be a valid instrument. Usually if you don't have a food frequency questionnaire validated for our population, we can apply, for example, a 24-hour recall that doesn't need validation, okay? So after we have applied these methods, or frequency or 24-hour recall, we end up with a lot of information about the food that people have reported. So how we can visualize so many dimensions, so many combinations of food at once, okay? Because this is what we want. We want to try to identify, okay, all this in our data set with so many information, okay, so how we can observe, visualize the patterns that has positive results with outcome that we are studying, for example, cardiovascular disease, or has a negative result, for example, increase or decrease cholesterol, blood cholesterol, for example. So how we can do that? So the principal component analysis it's a statistical method that can help us to achieve this goal, okay? Because it takes all the component, all the factors. So our factors are the food items in our data set. They combine them, the method conducts some intercorrelation among all the factors, all the variables, and deliver for us, they produce new factors. So these new factors are the principal component that will explain, that it will show us the most of the variation in our data set in terms of the food that we have in our data sets. So just to make it a little bit clear, what it means. So when you have our method, so here a picture of a food frequency questionnaire, you know that, for example, a food frequency questionnaire is a long list of foods, so usually 80 or to more than 100. So we have, let's guess, like 80 food items in our food frequency questionnaire. So in our data set, you end up with 80 variables, okay? That each person will reply about the information, if the person eat or not this food. So we will get these 80 variables that are the 80 factors, and the PCA will conduct this analysis and will deliver for us they will deliver not only, but you deliver the principal components. So in terms of 3 to 5 components that are the dietary pattern, okay? So when the method, the statistic deliver these principal components, the principal components are ranked as the most important to the least important. So the first dietary pattern, the first factor that you deliver, it is the factor that explains more about the variance of the food intake in my population. So we have the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. So, and the first ones are those that explain more, okay? And just to go back to some definitions, what the method does. The method, it's a reduction, it conducts a reduction or aggregation, reducing the large number of variables into smaller groups. So these smaller groups are the dietary pattern, okay, or the principal components. So these new variables that for us here are the dietary pattern, they are more correlated with each other. The method shows which foods has a stronger intercorrelation among them, okay? So just to, this slide show you, when you reply to a food frequency questionnaire, okay, you have the long list of foods, and the person, the population that you are working, each subject will reply about the frequency of consumption, okay? So this is the information that you have in a food frequency questionnaire. For example, beef. So the person will reply the frequency of consumption, if it's a daily frequency or weekly frequency or less, okay? So just to show you one example that I have worked previously, in my food frequency questionnaire, my frequency options were 2 or more times a day, once a day, 5 to 6 times a week, 2 to 4 times a week, once a week, 1 to 3 times per month, or never, or almost never. So each subject will reply about each food item in my food questionnaire. They reply about the frequency, okay? So in my data set, what I have about what means information of frequency, okay? Information of frequency, we have to convert. For example, when someone says once a day, okay, once a day is a number 1, for example, is the reference is 1. If someone replies twice a day, the information in the data set will be 2. And with less frequency comparing to a day, we will convert. For example, 5 to 6 times a week means 0.7. 2 to 4 times a week means 0.28. Why 0.28? Because it's 3 divided by 7. So the week has 7 days. So we divide this frequency by 7. For example, once per month is 1 divided by 30. Okay, so something like, no, sorry, here is 1 per week. So 1 per week is 1 divided by 7. 1 to 3 times per month is 1 divided by 30. Okay, so these are the information that my data set you have. Just to visualize what it means in the data set, for example, this is a hypothetical data set. We have the subjects here, subject ID number 1, 2. So each line is one subject in my data set, one person. So for example, rice is 0.7. So this person doesn't eat rice every day, but almost every day. So we will end up with a data set with this type of numbers, okay? 0 means, for example, someone that doesn't eat bread, so and so on. So just to show you how will be our data set. And these numbers, when you conduct the analysis, these are the numbers that the PCA will conduct this intercorrelation. It will intercorrelate all this information. For example, let's guess here. Rice, for example, this subject has a good frequency of rice, is almost once a day, 0.7, and also banana. So it means that rice and banana for this subject, it's those type of food that has a high frequency of consumption. So of course, in the data, in the PCA, it will not work only by subject, but you make an intercorrelation in our big data set, okay? So the PCA will deliver for us which foods that has a high frequency of consumption and those that have a lower frequency of consumption, something like that, okay? But how, for example, you have this data set here. Here I show you only like 5 columns, okay? Rice, beans, bread, banana, fruit. But actually my data set has 80 or more variables, okay? So the first step for we start organize our data set to apply a PCA is try to reduce the big number of variables. We can conduct a PCA with 100 variables, but then the results maybe not be so good. So usually we try to reduce this big number. So we combine similar foods. For example, if in my data set I have 10 items of fruit, I can combine these fruits. What it means combine? Combine means to sum all the frequency of all fruits. So instead of work with 10 food items, I work with only one food item, but I will sum up all the frequency of all these 10 fruits that the subject reply for me, okay? So the first step is try to combine foods to reduce the number of food items. So how we reduce? Reduce based on the nutrient composition, on the type of food. So as I said, if I have 10 fruits, I reduce the 10 fruits to one single variable of fruit. The same for vegetables. Sometimes you have like 10 food, 10 or more items of vegetable. I try to combine and so on. So in my data, the experience that I had before, I had my data set with 82 food items. So my food frequency questionnaire had these 82 items, and we reduced them to 45 items. So, okay. So here in this table, it shows how was this reduction, okay? For example, I have orange and tangerine, so I combine in the same item. Other fruits, papaya, I put in the same, I combine all these items. Let's see, all this type of processed meat here. So luncheon meats like ram, mortadella, sausage, I combine these 3 items in one item. Milk and dairy products, I combine all dairy products in one item. Milk, yogurt, hard cheese, soft cheese, okay? Butter and margarine, all sweets like pudding, dessert, chocolate, I combine in one item. So I end up from 82 to 45 items, okay? So this is the first step. I have my data set with my food frequency questionnaire or 24-hour recall, and then first I try to reduce the number. So with the 45 items, so I have this 45 variables in my data set. So rice, beans, so each variables are the frequency of consumption. And then in the stat, the code is quite simple. So you just need to put the command PCA here. So PCA is the command. And then you put in my case, all the 45 food items, rice, beans, that the name here is the name of the variable, okay? So you put all the variables and run, okay? Then they have here the script plot. What it means, the script plot. So the PCA code, it will conduct the intercorrelation among all variables to deliver these new variables that are the principal components, okay, that explain most of the variance. But to visualize how was this intercorrelation, we request to plot a graphic. This graphic is the script plot, okay, to visualize how was this intercorrelation. When you request this plot, this script plot, here is how the script plot usually shows for us in our analysis. So here in the script plot, it shows that how much variance in our data set are explained by each principal component. So each dot here, okay, in our graphic means a different dietary pattern. Because I have run the code with 45 items, in my plot, my script plot, I will have 45 dots. It means 45 principal component, okay? But the first components, this first ones before the curve, are those that explain more of the variance in my data set. And usually are those that will retain as the principal component, okay? So usually we retain those components before the curve. For example, I have the indicate here. So for example, before the curve, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this analysis, we have retained 4 components because these 4 are those that explain more about the variance in my data set. Okay, so just to remind you, because we have 45 variables, here it shows 45 patterns, but it doesn't mean that we retain all these other patterns here because they explain a little bit, just a little bit about the variance to see that each dot here after the curve, they are very near one to each other, okay? So they don't explain so much of these variance. So the principal component analysis are those before the curve. So after we decided we have run the analysis, we have make a visual inspection of the analysis. We decided here that we will retain 4. We can decide to retain 2 or 3, it doesn't matter, okay? But we decided to have retain 4. So we run the analysis again and put the command rotate F factor 4, F4, because it will make conduct a rotation analysis that will conduct another intercorrelation only among these 4 principal component analysis that we selected. This step will increase the weight of each food, how much it would contribute when inside the principal component, okay? So I will explain a little bit more about this weight, about this loading in the next slide, okay? But after we have decided, we run again, indicate, okay, we are gonna retain 4 components, okay? And someone have asked yesterday about how if the variables, the principal component analysis become a variables in our data set. Yes, when you run, after you have decided the 4, to keep the 4, we add the command predict. So pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, pattern 4, and it will generate these 4 variables. There are our 4 dietary patterns, okay? Okay. So when we requested for the software to run these 4 patterns, this will be the, how can I say, the table that they will show us about the 4 components. So it will show all the food items. So here, in my case, was 45 food items. Here, this table is not completed, okay, because would be quite long. So I just cut the table. So, but just to show you how it will show for us in our script. It will show all the food items that I added in my code. And here it shows the 4 components, that means the 4 dietary pattern, and each food in each component has a loading, okay? So these are the 4 variables that were predicted and generated into my data set, okay? And each food item has this loading, okay? The loading is the weight that indicates the contribution of each variable to each principal component, okay? Because the 45 items compose each dietary pattern, but you see that the number here of the loading are different. For example, in the component 1, the rice contribute very little, is 0.0028. So it's very little compared, for example, to the component number 4, which the rice contribute with 0.26. Okay, so it means that the rice explain more, it contribute more in the pattern number 4. Okay, let's see if I know. Okay, so each of my variables, each variable or my 45 variables has a contribution in each pattern, but we will make now the next step to identify to describe this 4 dietary pattern is make this inspection to check which items most explain, for example, the component number 1, the component number 2. So you're gonna now make this step, you have to visualize. And then you have to check each food has a bigger contribution in each pattern, okay? So this is this exercise that I have sent for you, okay? So what has in this exercise? This exercise is for you. Now I try to check this, verify this material that I have sent, and identify the food items that best describe each dietary pattern. So you're gonna look at these 4 components and check, for example, rice, as I said before, rice, the bigger contribution, the bigger loading are in the component number 4. So here I gave you the reference that we are gonna select all factor loading higher than 0.25, okay? So for example, here you're gonna, the reference bigger than 0.25 are in the component number 4. So, and you're gonna, so the exercise is just for you have this experience of how identify the food items that compose the most explain each dietary pattern, okay? So if you wanna, I can give you like some minutes, 4 minutes, for you make this inspection, okay? So you're gonna, for example, the next step is like beans, where beans most contribute, contribute again with the component number 4, and so on, okay? Some components, for example, let's see, popcorn. The popcorn doesn't reach, for example, in the component number 1, doesn't reach 0.25, is 0.20, then after is 0.03, 0.21, 0.24. So it's very low. So the popcorn doesn't not compose any dietary pattern, okay? So what do you think? Can you just have a look in the material and check if you can identify? Okay, I will count here. There are some doubts. For example, here someone asked, for example, in some cases, some items they score higher than 0.85 in both components. Okay, so you choose the component that this food, for example, red meat and pizza in the case, contribute more. For example, let's see here, pizza. Pizza here is pizza is 0.29. Nope, so okay, so 0.29 and the other ones, they are very low. So pizza compose the component number 1, okay? So let's see other example, coffee. Coffee is 0.02, 0.06, 0.11, so 0.39. So you compose the component number, it will explain the component number 4, okay? So we select the coffee in the component number 4. It must be 0.25 or higher, okay? So let's see, tomato. Tomato, so the biggest weight are in the component number 2. Okay? So let's see sugar. See. The higher weights are in the component number 4. So sugar compose the component number 4. Okay, you always have to select looking at the 4 columns, okay? Okay. So let's see, I saw you, okay, someone has replied here. So component number 1, red meat, pizza, chicken, fish, and processed meat. Component 2, fruit, orange, banana, legumes, and fruit. Component 3, chocolate, ice cream, candies, dairies. Component 4, rice, beans, sugar, white bread, coffee, and fat. Okay, so the second part in the exercise is after you have identified, you have to look at these foods and try to give a name, okay? Because we can always refer to the components, the dietary pattern as dietary pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, or component 1, 2, 3, 4, or we can give a name to be easier to understand. For example, when you say component number 1, you are saying, okay, those that are composed by protein-rich foods, okay? So it's better sometimes you give a name to each component. So, for example, some ideas here for the component 1 is protein-rich foods, like component 2, fruits and vegetables. Component 3 is snacks, because are all sweets, okay? And component 4, carbohydrates rich, okay? So this is one, I'm reading here the options, okay? The options that you gave here. So let's see another one here, Olivia. Okay. Okay. So please, what is the yardstick for choosing? Okay, I will explain this again in the next steps, okay? Because here I mentioned for you, select those with the higher loading 0.25, okay? It's very arbitrary. That's why I mentioned yesterday that the PCA analysis, there are many steps that are the researcher's decision. The researcher have to make decisions. I could have choose 0.2, I could have choose 0.3, okay? But you have to check the how is my loadings and see inspect all the loadings and see those that most explain, okay? If I have retained like a higher score than 0.25, maybe I will have less food to explain my dietary pattern, okay? If I had be more, like I say, rigid, more. I have, for example, in the component number 4, if I have choose 0.3, in my first component, I would retain only beans and sugar. So how will we explain a dietary pattern only with beans and sugar? So it will not make so much sense. But if I choose 0.25 or higher, this pattern make more sense because you be composed by rice, beans, sugar, white bread. That rice, beans, sugar, and white bread and coffee are at the very basic standard, the basic food in Brazil. So the Brazilian food are the basic Brazilian food for lunch is rice and beans. And for breakfast, it's coffee, white bread, and margarine, for example, butter. Okay, so coffee and bread are very important. And for lunch, rice and beans. So this for the fourth pattern, rice, beans, coffee, and white bread give us idea of a Brazilian pattern, okay? That's why, so this is, as I said, the choosing the loading depends of the researcher decision. You have to look at the data and see what the data try to tell us, okay? Okay? So let's go back. So what we have done, okay? Opa, I have to click here. So let's return to understand what we have done, okay? So we have identified this food pattern. So we have identified which food items best describe each of the 4 dietary pattern. And I indicated for you the factor loading higher than 0.25, okay? So what was the result? At the end of this table, I think, I guess they have a number. I don't know. I don't remember how I sent for you. Okay, but for example, the first component, okay, that we could, someone said like protein-rich foods, right? Okay, so here in our case, we put meat and fast foods, okay? It was composed by seafoods, processed meat, pizza, hamburger, giblets, chicken meat, and pork meat. So very protein, okay? And these were the loading for each of these foods, okay? At the end of this table, I don't know if I sent to you the complete table, it shows how much variance of each diet pattern explains in the total variance, okay? So this first one explained 40.5% of the total variance. So it's the higher one, the one with the highest variance, okay? The second one explained 10.3, the third one 7.5, the fourth one 7.6, okay? So these together, the four component explains 39.9 of the total variance. So as I said for you, the first principal components will explain more of the total variance. So the other ones that I said for you, that you can have the fifth diet pattern, the sixth, and you can have many, but you explain very little of my total variance. So, okay, so that's why we retain just the first four. So this first one was very protein. So I gave this name for them, for this pattern. The second one, as you said, it was very fruit and veggies. So we put fruit and veggies pattern. The second one was very sugar, sweets. Okay, so here we gave the name candy, sodas, and dairies. And the last one, as I have explained for you, is white bread, white rice, black coffee, beans. So that's why we put the common Brazilian pattern, because this is the most common foods of our dietary habits, okay? Black coffee in the morning with white bread, and for lunch, rice, white rice and black beans, okay? So what you have done was try to select the items that most explain my pattern, okay? So the principal component analysis, so just going back to the definitions, because I think after this explanation, if you review the definition, you understand a little bit more, okay? So what is the principal component? So the principal component reduces a large number of variables. As I said, we started with 45 variables. We end up with 4 variables, the principal components. So it reduces a large number of variables into a smaller number of variables. So these new variables that are the patterns are created from a combination of all of the original variables based on correlation between them, accounting for the much variance as possible, okay? So these new variables, they have weighted average of the original variables, okay? So the factor loading, these numbers that we have selected in each color is the factor loading. So are the coefficient definitions of the new combinations and correlation between the foods and the components. The high loading means a greater association with the component. So, for example, in the Brazilian component, the Brazilian pattern, the rice, the white rice, beans, coffee, sugar, bread are the components with the greater association with that pattern. That's why we will explain the pattern based on that food items, okay? So if for each pattern obtained, in my data set, when we predict the 4 variables, okay, all my subjects in my data set will receive a score, okay? This score has the minimum of 0 and the maximum of 1, okay? With higher loading in this score means that the subject has a higher adherence to this pattern. With more close to the 0 means that the subject has a lower score in that pattern, okay? But in my data set, all my subjects will receive a score for each pattern. So for example, probably in most cases someone that has a higher score in the vegetables and fruit pattern. It means try to have a healthy food because it's a higher frequency of fruit and vegetables. Probably this subject has a lower score for the fast food pattern because the foods are opposites, okay? But each subject will receive a score, okay? So the higher score, closer adherence to the pattern, okay? As I said, we have many important decisions that depends of the researcher, the person that is working on the data set. So first decision, we have, as I said, we have combined the foods. So in my data set, I had, in my case, 82 food items, and I decided to combine to 45 food items. So I did many combinations, but I didn't reduce more than 45. I finished in 45 groups because in my opinion, if I reduce more, if I combine more foods, maybe the combination will not make sense, okay? So this combination, when you reduce the number of my data set from the original variables and try to reduce, it's a decisions of the subject that is working on the data set, okay? So we do this to reduce the number of variables, okay? As I said, in my case, I work with food frequency questionnaire. So I work at my variable, in my data set, the foods was frequency of consumption. But if I was working with other methods like 24-hour recall, diet recall, I would probably has grams, okay? Some researchers we have seen in the literature, they work with density, okay? But it's another researcher's decision, okay? We also can work with a binary variable. For example, instead of frequency or instead of grams, I would have worked for each food 0 or 1. For example, 0 for those who don't eat the item and 1 for those who eat the item. Or, for example, someone yesterday asked me if you could use the DKK, the diet quality index. Diet quality was DKK. I don't know how was the, but in that method, DKK, it's a list of around 20 food items, right? And the person answer if in the day before, if they had eat or not that food item. So the answers in that instrument is 0 or 1. So yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. So you end up with a data set with the answer, the number will be 0 or 1. So we also can use that type of information to run the PCA, okay? And also there are other decisions. For example, if you want to make an energy adjustment, if your population has like different age groups, so like the younger one eat less, the older one eat more, so you can conduct energy adjustment. But anyway, this is another step. If you want to take, you have to study a little bit more to understand how you do that. We also can remove items. For example, if in my data set, even after have combined the foods, some food items has a very low frequency of consumption, I can make some decisions to take out this item from my PCA analysis, okay? I'll give you an example. If even after I combine, I have an item with that the total frequency of consumption in my sample is 5%, only 5% eat this item. Let's see, like pepper. Here in Brazil, few people eat spicy food, okay? Very few people. So usually when you have spicy pepper in a food frequency questionnaire or other instrument, we always end up with a very low frequency of consumption. So I can decide to take out this item, okay? Another example, I had worked before with data from women, pregnant women. And because pregnant women avoid to eat, to drink alcohol, the frequency of alcohol consumption in pregnancy was very, very low, like 2%. So it's an item with a very low frequency. Most of people don't, in that case, didn't drink alcohol, were not having alcohol. So we decided to take out alcohol for our analysis, okay? So you can conduct these decisions, remove some items, okay? And even after running, we can see some factor loading very, very low. So we can take out these food items and run the PCA again to see if the other loads get higher and so on. Okay? And another question that I saw someone ask, I think a little bit before, is how to make this decision of how many patterns to retain. So as I said, in most cases, you always check the script plot to visualize how are the patterns in the script plot. And we decided to, we know that those before the curve has a higher variance in my data set. But I said for you, I decided to take 4, okay? But we could decide to take 3, we could decide to take 5. So how I'll make this decision? Tá? After this script plot and after check the loading of each pattern, what we observed in this exercise? The 4th pattern the last one was that one that was composed by the Brazilian traditional food habits. So for us, makes sense retain the 4th pattern, okay? Because that one was important for us, because that one was the only one that was close to the Brazilian food habit. That's why we retain 4. The 5th, we also checked in our analysis, but the 5th didn't make sense. We're not explaining so much comparing to the other ones, okay? So that's why we decided, in my case, retain 4, okay? So this decision can be made by the script plot, checking how many was before the curve, interpretability, as I said for you, that was the reason why we kept the 4th one. And also there are other, you can use the Kaiser criterion. There is another criteria based on the variance that you check in the statistical analysis, but this is another step, okay? Is when you sum all the factor loading in each column of the patterns and check if it's higher than 1, we can retain that one, okay? Sorry. No, sorry. Let me check if I was, which one? Okay. Okay, this is there. So after make the decision of retain the 4-1, we conduct this new rotation, to indicate the number, only the number of components that we have selected. So this rotation, okay, will shift the components to end up with a higher factor loading in these 4 components that we have selected. For example, if you compare the factor loading before and after the rotation, okay, we can see that this factor loading for each component, sometimes it increases. Sometimes no, it tends to increase, okay? That's why we conduct this rotation. So it's to improve this factor loading. And one of the last steps is labeling, okay? When you give a name for our pattern, As I said for you, usually we check the items that compose each pattern and give a name that represents these food items. So in our case, we gave like meat and fast food, fruit and vegetable, and as I mentioned, the last one, common Brazilian, okay? But the name is, we can decide the name. We could give the name pink, green, yellow, and blue, okay? Or you could say 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Okay, so it's our choice, okay? So usually we see in publications, people usually give a name that represents the items, okay? The cutoff, as I mentioned for you, how you make this decision. You check the list of foods in each component and see the cutoff that below this cutoff, the food doesn't make sense, or higher in or above this cutoff, the foods make sense. We can explain this item, okay? So you have to check the items and make this decision. But usually in the literature, if you check the papers published, we don't see so much papers with a loading lower than 0.2, okay? Always see like 0.25 is the lower one. Usually is better when the higher one you choose is better, okay? So, guys, our goal today was to give this basic knowledge in PCA for reading materials, manuscripts, and probably planning future projects. If you have a data set, you can, I guess, who has a data set is already thinking on how to conduct this type of analysis. If you have any doubt, we can write back to me. And it's very important when we start to conduct this type of analysis, even PCA or other method for running dietary patterns, you always have a lot of doubts, or because all these decisions that I mentioned for you are decisions that when you are working on the data set, you have these doubts, okay? And then you you see the necessity to discuss with someone to show your data and discuss what will be the best decisions to make, okay? And in the literature, we always find many papers that bring these decisions and bring these discussions. For example, one of the papers that I sent for you is this one. So what do review papers conclude about food and dietary patterns? So this is a review paper that mentions about different ways to run dietary pattern analysis, and you discuss a little bit some differences between the methods, okay? Another case, for example, is this one that I can send for you. I didn't send before because it would be very specific, so maybe you will not understand, but I believe that after this class, now you can read this paper. Okay, this before was a general idea, and this one is a more specific. So this paper discuss how many patterns to retain. So they give the presents for you some of discussions, some examples, because all these doubts that we have are not only us that are having doubts when you run analysis. All researcher has doubts and always like to discuss with others that have this experience before, okay? So just before to finish, but we can open for discussion now. So first of all, I'd like to thank you again for attending this class, okay? Just for saying again, we are from a graduation program in nutrition and foods. We are based in Brazil, in Pelotas, that is south of Brazil. Here is the website of our program if you want to have a look about our research lines and our projects. When you enter in this link, you have to click on the English version, and then they translate the website for you. Okay, and just for Here in Brazil, you have the G-Cube Mob. It's a program that is open for any student worldwide that if they want to start the graduation program in Brazil, even master, or they want to conduct the PhD here. Annually, we have this opportunity. When you hear this year, the applications are open to up to mid of July, so yeah, in few weeks, but it's still open. So usually it opens every year, okay? And if you enter in the link, we can check if you are eligible, if it's interesting for you. And you have to work on this application. And when you conduct this application, you can choose, if I'm not wrong, 4 or 5 institutions. You don't need to choose only one, okay? So in your case, I guess that most of here are students for nutrition. So you can search about the nutrition program, graduation nutrition program, not only here in my university, Pelotas, but you can also search for others in other states in Brazil. And you can, if you are interested, you can indicate up to 4 or 5, if I'm not wrong, but it's more than one, okay? You can indicate, and then the programs that have open positions for international students, they you check your CV, your letters, and they can choose or not. So if you put like more options, more university options, I guess you'll be choose for one of these university, okay? So always good check the programs. So for example, in our case, you check our program, see if our research lines are interested for you, or we can, so you search for other ones to check which professor or which research line is interested for you, okay? So just for you know that you have this opportunity if you wanna to study here in Brazil, okay? Okay, guys, so this is what I had prepared for you. It was a little bit shorter than yesterday, but it was just to continue and to be more clear about how is this principal component analysis, okay? So I'm now open for questions. DKQ is 29 food groups. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. So let's see. Please, after choosing the number of components, what does each one means? Okay, can I start answering the question? Okay, so someone asked here. I'm not listening you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Juliana. I'll be moderating the section with you, the question and answer section. Thank you so much for the amazing section. We really appreciate it. So please, everyone, we could drop our questions on the chat box, We could drop our questions in the chat box. And if you would like to speak, you could raise your virtual hand so I could call you, so we could take your questions. Please, if there are questions, let's put them in the chat box. Thank you. Okay. Prof, ma'am, please, there's a question said, someone asked, how can we get the PCA apps? How can we get the PCA apps?
App? Did the person ask about the app?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because it's not actually an app. PCA is a statistical analysis. So you need to have a statistical software. Can be SPSS, can be Stata, or any other one. Okay, you just need to check that usually nowadays is fine, but just to check if your software are able to run a PCA analysis. Okay, but most of them nowadays are able.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. All right, there's another question here. Said, I observed that the variables at the end are 28, not 45. Does it
Yeah.
mean that we can remove the ones that do not meet the cutoff loading factors?
Yeah, actually, I just don't know what was just 28. Maybe you have drop out some with lower, as I said for you, with lower frequency, something like that. That was the reason why there were less than 45. So maybe we have reduced. Yeah.
Okay, thank you
But
so much,
just
ma'am.
as just for you, just to explain, this was just a exercise. So I don't know if I send the complete table for you. Okay, I have to check.
All right, ma'am. Another question from Kadri said, how do we use the saved factors in logistics regression? How do we use the saved factors in
The
logistics
factor,
regression?
yeah. So each pattern, it's a variable that each subject has a score. So you use as a continuous score. But the most common use is when you make tertiles or quartiles. So, for example, in some case of, like, give you an example of tertile. You use a tertile, and then we combine the groups, for example, one and the first and the second, that the ones that has a lower adherence to to the to the pattern, and the third tertile are those that has a higher adherence to the pattern. So usually you can do like this. So make tertile quartiles and so on. Okay. So use as a variable. The dietary pattern is a continuous variable. Okay. But usually work with this idea that compare those that has a higher adherence to those that has a lower adherence. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification, Prof. There's another question here. It says, since consumption frequency is important for PCA, how do you handle food combinations for the analysis?
Yeah, so we combine the frequency of consumption. So for example, if I have 3 fruits, banana, orange, or whatever, another one, apple. So we decided to combine these 3 fruits. We will sum up the frequency of the frequency of consumption in one variable. Okay, so we'll create new variables, sum all the frequency to create these new variants. So we will reduce, for example, the 3 variables to one variable. Okay.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay, here's another question from Akinyemi. Said, you use Tata. So do other softwares require the same steps or procedure as you did using Stata?
Yeah, these steps are the same. Okay, because if in all analysis in each software, you have to conduct these steps. Okay.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
the
Thank
steps
you.
are the steps. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Favor said, how can we run PCA using SPSS, ma'am?
Yeah. So
run...
I had a previous experience with SPSS, but I had never run the PCA in the SPSS. So you have to search on the PCA, on the SPSS, and check how you have to conduct. So maybe if you search on Google or any other search on the internet. Maybe you can, or in reading the SPSS instruction, you check. You have to search on the SPSS and see how you can conduct the PCA. But I'm sure that they have ways to conduct. Okay.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much, Prof. Okay, one question also it says, how can we detect the particular package to run a specific dietary pattern?
How can we detect a particular package?
Yes. To run a specific dietary pattern.
Well, I'll give you an example of the stata. The stata in the stata is only the command. You only need to search if you have the package, but usually the stata you don't need to add a package for the the PCA, okay? But you just need to search and check if you are working with another software. If you need to search for the package in order to be able to run the PCA. For example, I'm sure for R, you probably have to download the package, okay? But the SPSS, I remember that I had a friend that she had run. And SPSS have many, if you go to the browse, you have all the steps. If you only choose the analysis, they open a window, you have to make some options, maybe choose some options in the window. So I'm sure if you search, you're gonna find the steps to run the PCA in the SPSS.
Okay, Prof. Thank you so much. Before I take the last two questions here, please, the feedback form has been sent here. Can we all fill the feedback form and also take the post test while the questions continue? Please, let's fill the feedback form, please, and the post test. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, so another question says, in the example given, the Brazilian pattern came last, but had a higher percentage variance value than the pattern before it. Can you please explain the reason it appeared so?
Yeah. So in this case, that's exercise that I send you, we worked with a data set from adolescents. Okay, it was the study that I mentioned for you yesterday that was from adolescents here from Brazil. And besides you have saw the pattern, the Brazilian pattern in the 4th position, for these adolescents, that it means for this population that we work at, the Brazilian pattern was not the main one. The main one, the one that have the most explain the variance of their food consumption, was the fast food, the fast food, right? So the Brazilian pattern was not the main one. Okay, it was only the 4th. But in the 4th position, though the items that most explain their 4th pattern was the rice, beans, coffee, white bread. Okay, so if you look at in the 4th pattern, if you look at the other food items, probably the loading was very lower of the other items. Okay, so, and probably in the first one, the loadings of the protein was not so higher, but they have more food items that explain that pattern. Okay, that's why but if you sum all the loading in each pattern, the first pattern, if you sum all loadings, you end up with a higher number, because the first one has a higher total variance, as I said, was 14%. And the last one, that was the Brazilian one, was only 7.5. Okay, so in terms of total variance, the Brazilian one has a lower total variance comparing to the first one. Okay, that's why.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Onyechi, I don't really get your question here. It says, please, a follow-up on consumption of mixed meal, rice, beans, and stew, or plantain porridge, or combination of foods not in the same group. Can you, I don't know, Ma'am, I don't know, Prof, Ma'am, I don't know if you are clear with that question, but I don't seem to understand. So if you could resend that question.
I guess she's asking when someone, for example, reported a mixed meal that has rice, beans, okay? But in the PCA, it's important to put each food not combined, but separate. You have to split the food, okay? So, for example, if I'm working with a 24-hour recall and someone reported, I ate rice and beans together, you have to try to estimate how much of meat, of rice and how much of beans, okay? If you have a specific item in your culture in Nigeria that it's a mixed meal, okay, so you can put the item together, okay? The recipe, for example, a cake, okay?
All right.
But it's your decision. It depends of your data set. If you have some items that is mixed, if you can make a decision to put, if it makes sense for you to add the item in a preparation, in a food preparation, okay. If it's very important, it makes more sense for you. It's fine, okay.
Thank you so much for the clarification, ma'am. Okay, the last question I have here, please, while we take the questions, can we all fill the feedback form? It has been resent here. So let's take the last question. It says, are there ways dietary pattern analysis help identify potential links between nutrition and chronic diseases?
Yes, so in our example, after have run this pattern and have identified the 4 patterns, we can use these 4 variables and then start making statistical analysis to see if these patterns has a strong correlation with high blood pressure, with high cholesterol, with obesity, and then we start using these variables in statistical analysis, okay? This is the way that we work in the PCA. We analyze the food habits, we establish the dietary patterns, and then we start using these variables in other analysis, okay?
Okay.
So let's see how was your end pre-test question. So I guess it was better today than comparing to yesterday. Let's see.
I guess so. All right, since there are the absence of any other question, I want to say thank you all for your question and your active participation. Thank you, Professor Juliana, for your thoughtful answers and discussion. So would like to hear from everyone. Please, would love you to and would appreciate if you provide your feedback about the webinar. So a feedback form has been sent. You could fill that form, and then also to stay up to date with our events, as we have a exciting line of webinars this year and you won't want to miss any. Would encourage you all to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on our social media. So every link has been sent to the chat box, the newsletter link, social media links, our YouTube page, LinkedIn, and all of that. So please follow us. And even to get a replay of this webinar is available on the YouTube page. The link has also been shared. So you could all go back to listen to the section once again. We hope you found this webinar valuable and we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you so much, everyone. The absence, okay, not seeing any messages, please, I will resend them now. We'll resend the links again. So fill them if you haven't done that, please.
If you want, I also can make some comments on the pre-test because I'm seeing the answers.
All right, please, ma'am, you can go ahead.
Can I? Okay, so let's see. The first question was, I know that some people are still answering, okay? But just to finish this part. So for example, first question was, uses predefined dietary guidelines or recommendations. So between principal component analysis or diet, is remember dietary quality index, the method that it uses dietary guidelines are the dietary quality index, okay, not the PCA. The PCA is a hypothesis driven. You don't have any hypothesis before running the analysis. The second requires continuous dietary intake data like grams or frequency of consumption is the PCA, okay? Identifies data-driven pattern based on correlation among foods is the PCA, right? Perfect. Everyone answer correct. Uses a rule-based system based on specific components of existing recommendation. So when is existing recommendation is the dietary quality index, not the PCA, okay? Suitable for exploring unknown population-specific food habits. So its principal component is dietary pattern analysis, okay? Not the dietary quality index. 6, allows for easier interpretation and communication of results to public health stakeholders. Yeah, this actually could be both. Could be either PCA, dietary pattern, or either diet quality index, okay? It's both answers, it's okay. Suitable for adapting in different population. So, to adapt for easier actually, when I built this question, I was more thinking on dietary quality index, because when you have the dietary quality index, you can adapt for other population. But anyway, the dietary pattern, the PCA, you have to run for each population, not adapting. But anyway, maybe the question was not so clear, okay? More suitable for track improvements. Yeah, actually, in this case, even both methods, diet quality index or the dietary pattern, okay? But the correct answer will be diet quality index. Suitable for hypothesis generating is diet PCA, okay? Suitable for assessment of differences among meals is the PCA, because the diet quality index you evaluate as a whole, the diet as a whole, not specific in each meal, okay? Okay, guys, so thank you very much for your time and for those who follow us in the second class. So my email is in my presentation. Feel free if you want to make questions, okay? If in the future you have experience running some analysis, I can try to help you in your analysis, okay? So have a good evening. Hope see you in another opportunity, okay? Bye.
Thank you very
Prof.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
very much, Paul.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.